say definitively that religions are all bullshit.
Welcome to Brainstorm.
We have the explicit tag for a reason.
This is a base level argument to a higher level morality.
I get paid to science?
To science as much as one can science.
The hell was my point?
Trigger warning. The Brainstorm podcast will criticize your most cherished beliefs. We attack nonsense in all its forms and discuss difficult subjects. If you peddle pseudoscience, supernatural woo, or religious dogma, then this is not your safe place. This is the home of hardcore skepticism.
Good evening, and welcome to the Brainstorm podcast, Skeptic Studio, where we do interviews and discuss major topics and news related to skepticism and atheism. I'm Angela, and the panel tonight is Leo.
Hello there.
Lisa.
Hello.
Renee.
Hi there.
And Dan.
That's
Hello.
me.
Oh, wait. Is there two Dans?
I knew that
There's
was going
two
to happen.
Dans.
I told you
There's
to
two
address
Dans.
that.
For those of you that are listening live or recorded, we decided to kick Corey and Gumby off the podcast. They're being annoying or so. We threw them in the closet. So. Yeah. So we're here in Roman Empire Studios in Regina, Saskatchewan, and today is November 25th, 2016. The Skeptic Studio is brought to you by Reasonist Inc., atheist, skeptic, and science-based apparel. You can find them at reasonistinc.com, I think. I deleted that link from my notes. So our guest tonight is the fantastic Dan Arel. Dan Arel is an award-winning journalist and an author, and the author of the best-selling book, The Secular Activist, as well as Parenting Without God. He is a writer for Danthropology on Pathos. He is also a freelance columnist for Alternate, Time, and The Huffington Post. He is the host of the brand new Danthropology podcast as well, and he drives Uber. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Did we miss anything? Are there any other hats that you wear?
Well, I actually this week I just started writing for The Hill, which is a U.S. political news website, and I also drive for Lyft, not just Uber.
Oh, perfect! Lyft and Uber, that's awesome.
Lyft and Uber, yeah. That's you gotta exploit both of them.
Exactly. All right. Well, I don't want to hog the mic necessarily. Does anyone have questions? I have a few questions, but does anyone else want to ask some questions?
Well, you're in the captain's chair,
I
so
am.
you get to start. You get to start.
Okay. Fine. So, what do you like the most about being a secular activist, Dan?
Honestly, seeing things accomplished is always, I think, any activism is a wonderful motivator to keep going. But also the drive from everyone I meet on the road at different events, just seeing that so many people care about secular values and wherever they are on the political spectrum, when it comes to separation of church and state, all these people come and unite, and they have this real drive to hold their government accountable and to stand up for each other and people they don't know, and to stand up for other religious people that aren't being stood up for. I really just like seeing that. I really like seeing the passion and the fire behind other activists and the movement as a whole.
So it's kind of contagious.
It really is,
yeah.
And especially after things start to happen, it just you have victories here and there, and it grows, and people get more excited, and it's like a drug.
Is there anything that drives you bonkers about being a secular activist?
Richard Duck. I mean, no. There's personality traits of certain people, and that's not actually a Richard Dawkins comment, but that's an everybody comment, that I think sometimes are counter to it, or they want to focus too much on, they want to be a secular activist, but then they want to focus on only disproving God.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of pushes back what, secular activism is working towards.
Yeah.
Where, disproving religion and disproving God have their place. I love them. I do them too. But I think they kind of need to exist outside of the activism side.
Mm-hmm.
Because for secularism to really flourish, we need everybody on board. So we can't say, look, you're an idiot because you believe in this. By the way, I really need you to support me when I say that we need separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
Get on board, moron.
Yeah.
So would you define secularism as... No, maybe I'll let you do. Can you define secularism for us and distinguish it from atheism?
Sure. So to me, I think the best way is secularism is just government and church being separate. It's like a form of governance in a sense.
Okay.
Where secularist is the person who believes in church-state separation, and then atheist and atheism are the person that doesn't believe in God. And really, if it comes down to it, you can be an atheist and not be a secularist.
How is that?
You could be S.E. Cupp from CNN, who really doesn't seem to stand up for any secular issues whatsoever anytime. Like, she seems to think, like, I wish I was a believer, because, you don't get to choose to be an atheist. You just are. Like, it happens. So she's an atheist, but she really will go to bat to give religion its privilege and to not fight to keep the two separate.
Interesting.
And it's mind-boggling. It drives me insane. I sometimes think that she's lying about one or the other, because she's a diehard conservative who says she's an atheist, and it's like oil and water. And I can't say she's a liar. I have to accept that what she says is true and that she's practicing what she preaches. I can't pull a no true Scotsman here, but it just seems so illogical to hold that position, but she seems to do so. But I know, I have one of my closest friends is a theology student, and he's one of the loudest, proponents for the separation of church and state.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you could have a very religious person who is also a secularist then.
Exactly, because he sees the benefit to the government staying out of his religion. But he also understands that not everyone believes what he believes, and it's not his job to force them to believe it.
So what? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So why do you think these two things get conflated so often, and secularism is opposed as much as it is in the United States and other countries?
I think because atheists generally are the loudest proponents for secularism, because it's confusing to the people that hold the most power. So in the United States, it's the Christian right. Christianity makes up the majority of the population here, so they have a lot of privilege that comes with it. They kind of stand up on this pedestal, and atheists are the ones saying, "Look, we should be equal with you." And other religions are saying it, but they're sort of being drowned out. They're very small minorities here. And, religious nuns and the secular movement is actually the biggest block outside of Christianity. Religious nuns in the U.S. make up at least 25%. And I would assume most of those are actually going to be atheists, because they're people that might not use the term, but then say, well, I'm spiritual, but then they have no deity belief.
When you said religious nuns, I thought like women wearing habits, and I was like, yeah, of course they're religious, like they're Catholic, I never heard that expression before. Okay, I got it. I'm on board with you now.
When you take when we do our census here, and they have under the religious block, you can check it.
Right, religion, nun. I got it. Yeah.
Nun is one of them, so we call them religious nuns.
I got it.
I can't tell you how many times I've written about religious nuns, and then I get spell checked saying it's N-U-N.
Yes. And it's redundant. You don't have to say religious nun. Like
That's right.
All those atheist nuns running around. Sister Act.
I bet there's some.
I would like to hear your take on...
I wouldn't doubt it.
I would like to hear your take on why there have been almost none or no openly secular or non-religious people elected to the federal government in the United States, why, if there's 25%, that's like a quarter of the population or more, how come they can't get one of these guys elected?
Two reasons. The main reason is because we aren't united as a 25%. At 25%, we are still too focused on dividing ourselves among other things. So a lot of times I'll use the word like atheist movement, and I'll get hate mail for a month from atheists saying there's no such thing as an atheist movement because we only agree on one thing. And then because, there'll be libertarians, conservatives, socialists, Democrats, Republicans saying like, look, I disagree with everything you say except that God doesn't exist.
It's like herding cats.
Exactly. It is like, and we're so focused on dividing ourselves and being unique that we forget the things that unite us and don't come together over those. And so we miss opportunities to be a big vocal voice. And so by doing so and being dispersed, we don't empower politicians to feel comfortable to say that they're secular. They can somewhat say they're secular, but they'll never say they're atheist or not religious in any sense. They really will skirt around that because they don't feel they have the back. If they felt they had a backing of a 25% voter bloc, that would change pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah.
But what they look at is people that will actually label themselves atheists. We make up like 4% of the population here.
Wow.
That's a meaningless voter bloc. That will not win you an election. And if that 4% is dispersed around the country, then why would an atheist, Democrat in Utah, of all places, even try to run as an atheist in such a Mormon place? You're just asking yourself to get shot down.
Yeah.
So they'll go with the religion that they were raised. They'll pretend, but I can't fathom that out of the hundreds of people in Congress that there aren't atheists. There most certainly have to be. They just aren't comfortable saying so.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, but I always think, Canada is so much less religious in our politics than the United States. But maybe our politicians are more secular than they are atheists. Like, I've never heard a politician in Canada say, I don't believe in God. I've certainly heard them talk about wanting the state out of the bedrooms of the nation, et cetera.
That's right.
That separation is definitely there, but not. I know Stephen Harper was religious. I don't really know exactly because he didn't put it in our faces, but I don't know.
Well, I think that's an important point. There's definitely some truth going back to the atheist and secularist, that it's two separate groups of people. In Canada, we definitely have people. Well, politicians don't use religion as as a tool to get elected as much.
No, and they seem devoted to secularism here.
I mean, there's still some of the more, I guess, certain regions, they might use it somewhat, but as a general principle, it's not used as a tool to get elected.
Yeah.
And where it seems like in the U.S., that's one of the main talking points that every single candidate has to talk about. Otherwise, you won't get elected.
Yeah, and it wasn't that way until the 60s. Before that, you never wanted to be open about your religion. That was a private matter. When John F. Kennedy ran for president here, he was openly Catholic, and that was considered a bad thing.
Oh.
Yeah, they were because they were worried that he was going to start taking orders from the Pope.
From the Pope, exactly. Yep.
And religion can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And that, him being elected, and then it sort of started to go from there, where then you had Jerry Falwell and the what do they call it? The moral majority, and that's what put Reagan in charge. And from that point on, it was this religious right, and the media just has eaten it up. So they bring up religion constantly
all the time
when we don't have to.
It was pretty much with Reagan that really came to the fore, wasn't it? Like with.
Oh yeah, it was Reagan ushered in the religious right, and he brought them into power and gave them all of this quote unquote credibility with our government that people thought after that they needed to pander to this massive group of people, and they took it to the extreme. And that's why now we see the evangelical, extreme right of religious fundamentalism here being so vocal, is because for some reason conservatives always go hard right here. So when they're running, they don't run on the moderate. When they start as far right as they can, and then they shift towards the middle a bit more after they win.
Okay.
So Dan,
But-
can you? Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I was
No,
going to say, can
please.
you frame Donald Trump in this then? Because he's gives during the campaign he paid lip service to being religious, but he's
Paid lip
clearly
service to
not
everything.
very religious. I mean,
He only
he can't be
worships
fooling
himself.
the evangelicals. So why?
I think he did fool the evangelicals a
What?
lot. Yeah, I do, because well, number one, I think they're really gullible here. But secondly,
No kidding.
James Dobson totally fell for that.
they I think are smart enough really to know that he was pandering to them and that he needed them to succeed. And by doing so, now winning, they feel like that he owes them. And to stay in power and to be successful, he's going to have to rely on them throughout these 4 years. And so they've really just politically positioned themselves to be necessary.
Okay.
So they don't need him to be religious. They just need him to cater to their every need.
Do you think that's why he picked Mike Pence as his VP?
Very much so. I think Mike Pence really played to look, I'm not that religious no matter how hard I pretend. Look at this guy that's extremely religious, who fights for all the things you want, and they gave that to him. And that's why Pence did all of the speaking, and all of his stops were in those very religious areas. And they put Trump in the big city.
Did you see the video that Pence released just a couple of days before the election? The one where he just kind of spoke into the camera for about 10 minutes. And he started off by saying, I'm a Christian, a Republican, and an American, and in that order or something like that. And then he just went off. It sounded just like a pastor preaching to his flock, the whole video, and that was a political campaign video.
Yeah, that is Mike Pence in a nutshell. I mean, he started off as a Christian talk radio doing politics host. That's where he got his start, and then he wound up in government. But he never really lost bringing that sort of preacher mentality with him. And to him, it's more important to be Christian than American.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to see here for the next 4 years. It's going to be rather frightful.
Yeah.
According to the internet here, 15 of the 30 ministers that were just sworn into Canada made a solemn affirmation instead of taking the oath and saying, "So help me God." So that's half of the new ones that got sworn in. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that either.
I didn't know that. It's kind of
It's
encouraging.
interesting. And then there's speculation that they're all atheists, and then so some had to come out and say, "No, I'm not," or whatever. It's a very strange world we live in.
It seems real. It's very strange the way that governments sort of divide up within like secular areas. Because I went and visited Costa Rica recently, and they're extremely, extremely Catholic there, and they have one of the most secular governments in the world.
Wow.
It just seems
what
that
about
countries
Turkey?
that have
Turkey's quite secular politically. My understanding is they are, but
yeah,
many people are very devout Muslims, right?
right.
Well, the current president is not as secular as you'd
Yeah,
want him to be. He's actually
Right.
well, he's considered to be the religious president, and a lot of people don't really like him that much. But it's kind of divided. But they have with the newest, with the recent president, they have taken a
Interesting,
turn.
because Turkey's always been like the go-to. Here's an example of a Muslim country where they have a secular government.
Well, and it's interesting if you go. Many South American countries are the same way as you described Costa Rica. They are almost 100% Catholic, and yet they have a very good separation of church and state. I know a couple of elections ago, the Mexican president-elect, like right after the election, went into the Catholic Church to pray, just to go down, kneel, and walk out. And that was in the media for weeks. People were pissed off that he had to have cameras follow him into the church and like show off that he was praying. And many other Latin American countries are somewhat similar to that. Like they don't like mixing the two.
Right, and I think it's because really, you can find church leaders here that feel very much the same way. They want total separation because they see the benefits to it. They see that it actually benefits them, it benefits their message, and it benefits their, sort of privilege they have by being separate. And so they actually get really upset when, evangelicals or, the Ken Ham types try to exploit the government for money because they understand that if that all falls apart, it hurts them. Mm-hmm. Americans United had very little trouble finding pastors in Kentucky that opposed Ken Ham getting tax dollars to build the ark because they didn't want that mixture. They want to stay as separate as they can because they don't pay taxes. I mean, as pastors, they're not paying taxes. Their churches aren't paying taxes. Mm-hmm. They're getting land at, amazing prices. They're not paying taxes on that. They're reaping massive benefits that they're terrified to lose. And then you have a whole other side of religion that just is power hungry.
Yeah.
And that's where it falls apart. And that's where they start throwing out, separation of church and state. And you find it right in the politicians because last month? Yeah, late last month, I went to Sacramento, California, and I was with Aaron Ra. And we went to the state capitol to meet with senators and congressmen or Congress people, and to remind them that secularists and atheists exist and that they should think about us when legislating. Mm-hmm. And we had scorecards. And we walked into one lady's office and introduced ourselves, and we sat down. And she was already agitated once we told her who we were. She was a Republican. And Aaron said something about the separation of church and state, and she leaned in and said, "I don't think it should exist." This is an elected official.
The separation.
Separation of church and state, she did not believe should exist.
Wow.
Well, she doesn't believe there should be a separation between her church and the state. But what if it, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, she said, this is a Christian nation. And Aaron said it's not. But would you be happy if Islam was taught in public schools like you want Christianity to be? And she said, absolutely not. Yeah. And I would stop it.
Yeah.
And he said, that's the separation of church and state. We just want you to stop teaching yours in school.
Yes.
As well. And she just didn't, that wasn't for her. She said, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's not fair at all.
But it's the Christian privilege that's been ingrained in our culture here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't like the separation of church and state like one of the cornerstones of the Constitution?
Yes, it very much is. But the way it's worded, even Supreme Court justices have tried to finagle it a bit to make it work for them. Mm-hmm. So, because it says the government can't endorse religion, but then they'll even use Christianity's a philosophy.
No,
that's a popular one here. But that generally will fall apart in court as well because other Supreme Court justices are like, yeah, no, philosophies get taxed.
But scratch that. Forget what I said.
Or they'll read the interpretation and say, well, sure, but that only means the federal government. So state governments can do this, or organizations can get government money, but since they're not the government, they can do it. Mm-hmm. And so they'll try to find ways to get around the separation of church and state, and they are generally semi-successful depending on where they are in the country and what courts hear their cases.
Well, okay, so I have a follow-up question on that comment you made about just the federal government. Would they be okay with then reinterpreting other points of the Constitution, like saying that individual states can completely ban guns because, the federal government can say one thing, but the states can say a different thing?
They'll then say no, and they'll try to refer back to the wording of the Second Amendment because that applies to citizens.
Oh.
And so the loops or the hoops that people will jump through here to make these things work for them and their beliefs are incredible. We see it every day when we talk about the Bible and people picking and choosing and interpreting this and that. It's the same with the Constitution here. It's people will interpret it. The mental gymnastics here are incredible because they'll refer back to state rights when they want something that the federal government's saying, But when they need something from the federal government, state rights go out the window. And suddenly the government has to give it. So they want it to go both ways. So they want states to say, we can ban abortion or gay marriage, but then they want, then they refer to the Constitution as infallible when it comes to the Second Amendment. And so they go back and forth, and there's no real rhyme or reason, except it's just convenience. So when there's something in the Constitution they need, it's an infallible document. When there's something in the Constitution that contradicts what they want, they have to interpret it differently. And we're just liberals or the left aren't understanding what our founding fathers had in mind.
That's right.
So are these people cynical? Are they they know that they're just kind of picking and choosing, or are they true believers? And it's just what I can't believe what you're describing. If they truly believed, it seems stupid. Are they crafty or are they dumb?
They're dumb.
Really?
I don't know if you've ever really been to much of the South in this country.
No,
but
not much.
They
the legislators, though. I don't mean the.
So the legislators are mostly crafty. Some of them are outright dumb. I mean, I've met some really dumb legislators in this country.
Wow, it's hard to hear.
Really, it is. The legislators here, our politicians have figured out that retaining power is all about, pandering to your voter base.
Yeah.
And so if the voter base wants a politician that's going to just give them what they want and, stand up for this part of the Constitution and reject this part, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because really, in this country, once you get power, especially in Congress, there's no term limit. So you can be there for the rest of your life, and you can make a lot of money, millions.
Yeah.
And if you're there for a certain amount of time and then you retire, we still pay you. So they want this power for as long as they can. Then when they're done, they usually quit and become lobbyists and make millions.
Wow.
Well, I have a question about the middleman you just mentioned. So you have the politicians, and then you have the general public. And I know you've written an article on the media, and not that. Well, it was quite straight to the point. So, how do you think the media fits into the whole scheme of distorting what politicians are doing and what the public is eating up?
Yeah, so I published that this morning.
Look at you reading things.
Good job, Leo.
I'm very upset with the news media in the U.S. right now because, and I don't even mean this in the same sense that what you'll hear from the right around here is that the news media is liberal and they have this agenda to elect certain kind. I don't even think that they have that. What they have is this for-profit agenda, which is to make money. And to make money, they have to show usually the most extreme, most ridiculous things that we've seen. So in this election cycle, unlike others, almost every single one of Donald Trump's stump speeches were covered live.
Yeah.
That's really not that common because stump speeches are incredibly boring.
Yeah.
They're just, I went to a few during this cycle to cover them. And I mean, it's the same stuff you always hear.
Yeah.
But at a Trump rally, you're always getting something new. He's always going off script, saying something incredibly offensive or stupid. Someone's getting in a fight. Chants are being yelled out. And so the news media, wanting to be first, covered all of these live because they couldn't miss what could possibly happen. But a lot of times they were just stump speeches and nothing happened. And then he'd move on to the next stump speech, then the next. And then maybe that week, 2 really insane things would happen. But that whole time, he's on TV all day, every day. And they're selling huge ad blocks because people want their ads shown because everyone was watching because they wanted to see what was going to happen next. And that became the norm. I mean, I think it was something like 325 hours a week of Trump on news media channels compared to like 120 something for Hillary Clinton.
Right before the election, I turned on my Sirius satellite radio and I turned to CNN. Before I did, I said to my buddy, I was like, what do you think will happen when I turn there? I'm going to say Hillary Clinton emails. Press the CNN button and it's like, right into Hillary Clinton emails. I'm like, all right, let's go to Fox News. What do you think? I think they'll be talking about Trump. I literally pressed the button, the very first word, Trump. It's just like right at the exact second.
All I can think of is that one. What was it? That one thing where Trump was going to come out and say he, disavowed the birther movement or whatever, and it was totally ridiculous because it was like a 20-minute infomercial for his Trump hotel, where they had Trump water and Trump steaks and Trump this and Trump that, and yeah, you're right that they were just filming the whole thing, and he just got hours of free advertisement for his. It's like shit.
Such a reality TV obsessed culture that it's infiltrated the election. No, that sells too. I thought I saw an interview with somebody high up in the executive CNN said, "Yeah, I guess we probably shouldn't have given him so much airtime."
and even beyond,
Really?
even beyond just this pumpkin-headed dude, the media. I mean, they've always been sort of like this, but this time it was just way, way worse.
Yeah. Well, they had someone they could work with.
But in other instances, they've always, for the past couple of decades, they've been pretty divisive. Well, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, they very much have been. And, what happened this time that makes it so much different is that Trump understood what was happening.
Yeah.
He's not an idiot.
He exploited that.
He knew exactly how to make sure cameras were always on him.
The way that you can tell that it was so divisive is think back to 4 years ago, how you as a liberal felt about Mitt Romney. You just everything about him, you're like, this guy's terrible. He's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. And then compare Romney to Trump. And you're like, geez,
like gold.
Romney wasn't really that bad. I'm sorry for hating on you so much.
Well, when I watched him call out Donald Trump like a month or two ago, I was
single tear.
I was sitting there thinking like, what does this world come to where I actually think that Mitt Romney is the rational one here?
I think I was shocked when as Trump was elected on November 8th. I remember just thinking to myself, wow, I never would have thought somebody would make George W. Bush look so good, so intellectual, and so smart.
How bad of a candidate do you have to be that George W. Bush won't vote for you?
Yeah, exactly. Looks a lot better now.
You guys just misremembered him.
Well, I mean, it was been
or misunderestimated.
I remember, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Eric Erickson, who is a CNN contributor, and he writes at Red State.
Okay.
And he is, anti-evolution, anti-climate change.
Oh.
He's as far right as they can.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many times I had Twitter conversations with him or retweeted him because of how right he was being anti-Trump.
Oh.
And that's how far it had gone, is that even like the most devout Republicans that I would never give the time of day to, I'm like, oh, wow, I need people to read this because it's coming from someone on his side that is saying, like, he is bad for the country. Like, they not only is he bad for the Republican Party, like he could be very damaging to their entire future, but a lot of Republicans that do, for all their flaws and their beliefs that I believe are wrong, they actually do love this country, and they're afraid of the direction he's going to take it in and the acts he's going to do. And even though, we will fundamentally disagree about the economy and welfare and religious freedom and things like that, they really just saw this dangerous person that could really change how this country moves forward. And they wanted nothing more than to stop him. And I can't believe how many Republicans felt that way.
Yeah.
And then to watch them spinelessly say, but I'm going to vote for him because he's a Republican.
Yeah.
Don't you think the Republican Party now? I don't know. Like, do you think it could ever go back to the way it was? I feel like it's been changed for good. I don't know.
Not for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Because the problem with the Republican Party is the way their voter base works, and they win when they incite the most extremes.
Okay.
That's how they succeed. But for a long time, they didn't have to go that far right to excite their voter base, because we had Clinton, Clinton pretty much set up the fact that Gore had a good chance of losing, So Gore had a lot to overcome. That's because of the impeachment and just the history of that that time. Gore had an uphill battle. George W. Bush came off as that guy. The news media sort of even pandered to him a bit. He seems like the kind of guy you want to have a beer with. He just seems so personable. And to a degree he did, because he was sort of that doofus in a sense. That I don't doubt that he's probably a really nice guy. We fundamentally disagree about many things.
That one that he couldn't justify and lied about. But anyways.
So in terms of the political culture of the U.S., do you see anything in the near future where we won't have just two groups of people, one likes coffee and one likes tea, and they hate everybody who likes the other thing, and they'll just vote along party lines no matter what kind of jackass they put on the stage?
I think it's going to be a long time before we get away from that. I think this election sort of set up the framework that could lead to that finally, where we can actually have...
Is that the silver lining here?
I don't even want to say silver lining because of what we're getting. It's like, I described this recently as finding a sliver of silver in a gigantic pile of crap. Even though we could a
pile of diarrhea and vomit.
This might be a little good, but we're still stuck under this big pile of crap.
It's like a tornado blows down your house and you find your car keys that you lost a year ago.
Exactly, for a car you don't even own anymore. Or the car that blew away.
Yes, yes.
But no, that's so I tend to stay away from silver lining, but I do think that we can, as the country's left, use this for good. So and if we don't, then all we've done is handed them the victory and rolled on our backs and said, destroy this place for the next 4 years. Yeah. We'll sit back and we'll regroup and figure out who the Democrat is that we're going to go for next time.
I'll go on the record and say he doesn't last longer than 4 years. And in fact, I've already bet money on it. And if anyone wants to
You've actually put
4 years is a long time. Things can change.
And that includes death, impeachment. If any of those things happen before the end of the 4 years, it's like re-election. If he gets re-elected, I lose $500.
I would take that bet. That I'm on your side.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's referring to the person who makes that kind of bet.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it to 4 years. Just because he's already talking about what he's going to do on weekends.
Well, the thing is,
he thinks he gets weekends. That's fine.
Yeah, he thinks he gets weekends.
That's adorable.
Can you
He's an adorable Oompa Loompa.
Can you elaborate on that, Dan?
Yeah, so he was doing an interview. I believe this was the interview he did with New York Times, and
he actually talked to the New York Times.
He did.
Yeah, so he's been running around trying to get interviews with the major media so that he can say look, you got me all wrong, because he needs to try to reframe himself a little bit right now, and. He was talking about how he doesn't want to live in the White House full time. So he wants to also live in Trump Tower in New York, which is costing $1 million a day, I believe it is, for Secret Service to protect him.
Obscene.
There.
Yes.
And now he wants to live in two locations as a mix between his full-time residence. And then he started talking about going to Florida on the weekends, where what's what he does now. Every weekend right now he flies to Florida, or except for I think on the campaign trail, but while running his business, he would go down to Mar-a-Lago, I think it is, and
work on his base tan, probably.
Yes,
right. But he was talking in the interview about how he was going to continue doing that, and people had to tell him you don't get weekends, you don't get to just clock out and go to Florida. That's a massive undertaking for him to just go somewhere. That's why presidents go to Camp David and things like that, because they're already set up. For this.
Yeah.
That's their getaway. But they don't go there every weekend. They go there once in a while to get out of the White House, where they end up still working, but it's just a little bit of a reprieve from the everyday, in Washington.
Yeah.
And then once in a while, they get an actual vacation, where they work every single day, but, Obama every year goes to Hawaii. He's working the entire time he's there, but his family's enjoying it, and he's in a nicer location. He's, home for him. And it's a bit different. And Trump doesn't seem to grasp the job he's taking on. Isn't a 9 to 5. It's it's a 12 to 12, and that's AM to AM.
Okay, I have a question. I want to ask this to a smart American person. So I got you here, so I'm going to ask. So when he's elected, I had this sense of terror, like a pit in my stomach, but I haven't been able to really give it words. Can you tell me what, I feel like this is going to be a disaster, but can you maybe predict, like, specifically what is going to happen? As I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Like, for example, I heard that in terms of the whole nuclear codes, like, for example, if a president wants to launch a nuclear strike, he can do so within like 8 minutes, whatever it is, and there's not a lot of checks and balances in there for as an example. Can you speculate how disastrous is this going to be? What gives me this pit?
Honestly, I hate to sound like a fearmonger.
No, I don't. I think we all feel. I just want to know what it is. What is it that I'm afraid of?
I think
actually, hold on.
I'm afraid.
Hold on, Dan. Before you answer, I just want to preface this and say I'm like the exact opposite. I think he's going to be very impotent and not get very much done, and it's going to go 4 years, kind of business as usual. Okay, go.
Well, I want to just. I hate to agree with our Dan here, who's in studio. But that is I have a similar feeling that it's not as bad as you think it will be.
That makes me feel so much
better.
better.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, so okay, now make me feel afraid.
I think that's wrong.
Mm-hmm. No. Yes, please share.
Congress.
Because he has Congress, right?
Because I think if you ask Donald Trump today, what is the life of a bill in the U.S. from start to finish? Mm-hmm. Like, how does a bill get passed? I don't think he can answer that question.
No. You just sing the song from the Saturday. Right. I'm just a
But I don't think he gets it. No, but song. What we have is a very Republican-empowered Congress. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's theirs.
Yeah.
We now have. They're now going to have the Supreme Court. Our vice president is a fundamentalist Christian, and Donald Trump is the clueless guy who's going to sign the things that are in front of him that the Republicans want done.
Yeah.
And so while I think you are correct that a lot of the really scary things Donald Trump campaigned on won't happen, I don't think we'll actually have a Muslim registry. I think
good.
They will continue to use that sort of language that will continue to make Muslims afraid, that will continue to incite hatred towards the U.S. outside of the U.S. So I think we have dangerous things that come from it, but I don't think at the end of the day, there's ever going to be an actual national registry in the sense that the white nationalists actually want.
Wow.
Because I don't think Republicans that are in Congress can let that happen if they ever want to be reelected. Mm-hmm. Because even though they might get the extreme voter base, they're not going to get enough of the moderates or the housewives voters that tend to vote Republican, but will easily switch if they see that sort of bigotry and hatred, and they'll jump back and forth. So I think they're going to have to be careful in Congress, but LGBTQ rights are going to be destroyed in the next 4 years, because just yesterday, the House of Representatives passed a bill that would allow federal employers to discriminate against LGBTQ individuals.
Wow.
Now, even if it passes the Senate, it will go to Obama. He'll veto it. Mm-hmm. But we only have that for another month and a half.
That's right.
They'll pass it again, send it to Trump. He will sign it without a second thought because he needs them to love him the entire time he's president. To be at all successful, Congress needs to just love him.
Mm-hmm. And so that's just the kind of person he is, right? He's a love whore or whatever. You know what I mean?
He's going to check his approval ratings every day.
Yeah.
But Trump recently said, he says a lot of things, but he said that, and I mean, in the past he had seemed like he had said things that was LGBTQ ally-ish, and then even more recently he said that he's going to be a friend to the LGBTQ community. So,
but Congress won't, and Mike Pence won't, and I don't think he's going to have the backbone to go to bat.
I think he would. No. I think he would.
I really
don't think so.
I think if a bill came in front of him that the House and Senate passed, he'll sign it. I don't think he'll be the one to veto it and say, look, I'm going to stand up for, same-sex rights. I don't see that from him.
Mm-hmm.
Because won't give him another 4 years.
I do agree with you on that point. And when I said I don't worry about it as much as some people do, I think it's basically going to be just a generic Republican country for the next however many years the guy is on. Like, I don't beyond the badness of the Republican Party, I am not worried. Like, when it comes to randomly firing nukes at other countries and closing off borders to foreigners of a specific nationality and that kind of stuff. But I do agree with you on the point that it's going to be basically a Republican-run government where they just kind of do what they've always done, what they've always kind of pushed for.
But do you not feel that if they're trying to remove some of those rights that have been given to women and homosexuals over the past, say, 10 years, don't you think there would be a lot of pushback from the moderate conservatives and from all of the liberals?
Well, they've tried
even more to help counteract that legislation and say, fuck your legislation. Here's real support from the people in your community that are going to rally against whatever business decides to discriminate because the law says that they can. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just think that the general public is better than a law.
The general public that elected Donald Trump?
I don't have faith in the general public.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a different story, the electorate and the election.
Here's the problem I have with that outcome. So, yes, I think you are right if that's what would happen. So, we have this whole, resist Trump movement kind of building right now. If that stays large and active during his entire presidency, I think they can be vocal enough to scare enough politicians away from putting forth the worst of the worst bills.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't
and
actually...
they'll try to dumb them down a bit.
But it doesn't
they'll try to get little things they want accomplished in there. So, and I say little things, and I shouldn't really use that because that kind of belittles the fact that they're going to try very hard to dismantle things like a woman's right to choose.
Yeah.
Which is not a little thing.
That's a very small
thing. But that's something that they can do and would do.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of public opinion, because so many of them fundamentally believe with all of their heart that that's the right thing to do.
No, one thing was worth pointing out is Trump might not have 4 years of the kind of power they have now. You could get a Democrat-controlled Congress in 2 years. In 2 years, yeah. So,
and that's going to be a big push too. Is really this being a 2-year mission to hold back as much as we can from being accomplished, and then replacing Congress and making him completely useless. Because the thing is, and so kind of back to I was saying scare me about the American people and what we have coming is the Republicans have already written the playbook on how to make a president almost completely ineffective.
Mm-hmm. That's what they did to Obama.
Because they did it to Obama.
Yeah.
The problem I'm seeing is Democrats are already saying, all right, Trump won. Well, you know what? At least he said he wants to make life better for the middle class. So I'm looking forward to working with him on that.
That's what they did. That's what happened with Trump or with Bush too, right? Like the Democrats.
It happened with Bush, but
it was so infuriating. I remember Jon Stewart talking about it, saying, "Why is it that Obama can't get anything done? Because when George W. Bush had a Democratic Congress, he did whatever the fuck he wanted." Like, what?
And so what I want to hear from my I won't say my Democrat. I'm far from a Democrat here in this country, but what I want to hear from these politicians that should be opposing Trump is, we're going to oppose you for 2 years solid. You're going to accomplish nothing. I don't want to hear partisanship right now, honestly. That sounds really odd. I think most people tend to want to find ways to reach across the aisle. Mm-hmm. I'm not that interested in what that other side of the aisle has to offer the American people. I don't think they're offering things that help workers or the unemployed or the underemployed or people with medical conditions and so on. I don't think they're offering solutions that help. Mm-hmm. So I don't really want to compromise with them, because what are they offering that helps people? They're offering things that help rich people and themselves. That's just that party.
Billionaires are people too, you know.
Billionaires' lives matter.
Yes.
But
yes.
what we have is we had too many Democrats start to shift in that direction as well. And that's where we had this whole, we call it neoliberalism, where they started looking at, let's privatize everything. But I think that, gay people can get married. And they start moving towards that mentality of, let's just really wrap our arms around capitalism and give it a huge hug and say we love it forever and skip down the road together. And that's what made Bernie Sanders look so extreme.
Yeah.
Was because he wasn't part of that neoliberalism that has been really taken over the Democratic Party for a long time now. Mm-hmm. Bernie Sanders isn't a socialist by any stretch of the word at all. He's just a Democrat. He's just what a Democrat's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Not what the Democrats have become. Mm-hmm. The Democrats have become a centrist, barely to the left party. Bernie Sanders is still closer to the center than socialists, even though he uses the word. But there's such a divide between those two ideologies now, between liberal and neoliberal, that he looks radical.
Sounds to me like a neoliberal is just a fiscal conservative with the social conservative stuff, maybe.
Yeah, that's pretty much the best way to describe it. They'll stand up for a bit more on social welfare programs, but they are the ones that will cave on them very fast to get things accomplished.
Well, it was Bill Clinton that negotiated NAFTA, right?
He negotiated parts of it. It was Bush that really pushed NAFTA through.
But it came through on his
won.
presidency, did it not? On Clinton's presidency?
It was signed during Bush's, I believe, and then but Clinton.
What do I know? Nothing.
I can't remember that.
Well, it was negotiated during Bush's, and then, but it was
supported by Clinton.
But I think it was signed during Clinton's. But it doesn't really matter because they pretty much agreed on it, both of them.
Right.
So
exactly.
it wasn't anybody's fault.
Just to go to show of the fiscal conservatism of. Yeah. That branch of the Democratic Party.
Right. And so what you have is, this was a criticism I had of Clinton, or Hillary Clinton when she was running, was that she oftentimes liked to talk about the fact that she could reach across the aisle and get things accomplished, which is seen politically here as a great thing. Like, wow, she can work with both sides. But what people weren't dissecting was what was given up to work with both sides. What things were lost that people needed. Mm-hmm. We don't have universal health care here, because right away, to quote-unquote work with both sides, Obama threw it off the table to do affordable health care. And while it has helped a bit, our health care is still a disaster here. Yeah. It's awful.
And that's on the side of what Congress and the president does. So on the other branch, the Supreme Court, do you think that there's any chance that some of the major decisions could get overturned anytime soon?
That's going to really be tough because they have to be brought up. So they can't just go back and overturn Roe v. Wade. They don't have that power. There has to be a lawsuit that comes up to the Supreme Court that they accept.
Okay.
And then they can overturn. So they can't go back and just say, like, all right, look, Roe v. Wade was wrong. We're going to overturn that decision. Yeah. The same-sex marriage ruling wrong, overturned. A court case actually has to make its way through all of the lower courts in appeals, make it to the Supreme Court level, and then they have to accept the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
what
that could be arranged, I guess, in a sense, but even
very much so
But Antonin Scalia, so basically he was the worst, one of the worst ones on the bench during most of Obama's presidency,
right?
And it was like the Supreme Court wasn't completely non-functional during Obama's presidency. So even if he gets replaced by an equal douchebag, the Supreme Court is not going to be that different. I mean, you'd have a hard time finding somebody worse than Antonin Scalia.
Correct.
Well, if you put an ad on Craigslist,
but that's only one appointee.
You might find someone.
But Ruth Bader Ginsburg is in her late 80s.
RBG, yes.
And then I can't, and on the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the next person, but there's another person who's just as old.
There's like three.
And so we're
of them,
looking at possible 3 appointees during Trump's 4 years.
Yeah.
And those are almost guaranteed that at least 2 more aren't gonna see the end of that 4 years. I can see RBG trying her hardest. Like
not to die.
I can literally see her hooked up to
How is
every
80,
machine ever,
like,
sitting
so
at that
old?
bench saying, "I'm not leaving until you're gone." But
Well, I'll put out a Hail Mary here on this. Is that what's the chances of, like, I mean, I know with the Republicans they love to say how, you know, they revere the Constitution and what the founding fathers intended and blah 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 blah. What are the chances the Electoral College actually does what it's supposed to do and stop Trump? Well, what do you think the chances of that actually happening?
Trump that Trump.
Yeah,
just about 0%.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think, but it is kind of that Hail Mary because wasn't it put in place ironically to stop a guy like Trump?
It was exactly why it was put in place, and well, sort of. So yeah, the idea that a single electorate goes and stops someone like Trump is why it's there. Because really, the truth is that it was the Electoral College was built to kind of ratify the Union, because we were having a hard time getting states like Virginia to get involved because they have such a little population that they didn't feel they had a voice in the election process.
Okay.
So you're always going to vote however you want, and we have no say. So the Electoral College was sort of built in to give them more standing in the election cycle. So, but in that sense, it was built so that these states could have more of a say when they might have a lower population. So in the end, yes, they should look at this and say, all right, Trump is not only this bad for the country, but he's refusing to even sell off his businesses.
Yes.
I mean, yeah,
today
he's been like
I don't know. Is that what a
violating
blind
things.
trust is? I don't know. Is that a blind trust? No, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to a blind trust that my kids are going to run.
Oh yeah, my kids are running. I heard that on the radio the other day. Is that a blind trust? I don't. Is it?
Every meeting I have right now, I'm going to invite my kids to it.
Yes.
That feels like a blind trust to me. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I told them to close their eyes. It's good.
Yeah, right. So yeah,
Earmuffs.
the Electoral College honestly should do just that. That is, in a sense, their responsibility. But what comes with that is another.
Well, like my very loose understanding of it was put in place so that you wouldn't have your, populist guy come in and who is just so woefully unqualified for the job.
Yeah.
But then again, the precedent of having, what do they call them, unfaithful electors is pretty much nil.
Right, and it's never happened, ever. In the history of this country, they've had people switch, like one or two, here and there, and go against the popular vote, but they've never had, the person that's won the Electoral College has never then lost, when the vote actually took place in December.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So we don't even know the legal precedents for it.
Well, there apparently
What does happen if that comes into place? So if because some states have passed laws that forbid the electorate from doing so, but a lot of legal experts have said those laws probably wouldn't hold up at the federal level because it's not written into the Constitution that way. And so I think really it would be interesting to see it happen because that would open up a can of worms. Like we wouldn't know. Number one, you'd have conservatives rioting in the streets. You'd have liberals now rioting in the streets because conservatives are doing it, and we're going to have fight back. And then you're going to have the courts in disarray trying to figure out how do we solve this. Meanwhile, during all of that, chances are we'd have no one in charge.
But you also don't want the Confederate flag flying over half the states again. Like I feel like just for that reason alone, it's not going to happen because people understand that the population with the most guns and who are very angry would be very angry about anything.
Well, to correct you a bit, I have a feeling that we're going to see the Confederate flag flying in almost half the states.
But from a fairness perspective, everyone went into this election accepting that the Electoral College was how it was done. This is how it's been done. And if you win the Electoral College, you win. So there's that implicit understanding that is how it works. And so to change the ruls after you lose with those rules doesn't seem fair.
Technically,
I know,
but the rules,
and it's not practical. I know, but in the spirit of it, it's culturally, it's never been done. Everyone understands that the Electoral College is just a formality, and nobody ever changes their vote.
Well, I would question if they actually understood it as that.
Well,
and I would.
I'm just saying those are the rules everyone agreed to when they started.
Yeah,
right?
Trump,
from a
Trump
fairness
is also
perspective.
saying that everybody went into this knowing that he had businesses and foreign and especially foreign businesses and they when they voted for him, that come part and parcel with it. They accepted that. Well, precedence has shown that anyone that gets elected and already has a business does a blind trust. So I think that is what the people were expecting, that if he gets elected, that he would be all his businesses would go into a blind trust. So I don't think it's fair for him to say that people voted for him knowing that he owned these businesses and expected that he would just continue running them while he was president of the most powerful country in the world.
But that's also a very stupid thing to say, because can we now expect him to shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and just be fine with it? Like, I said I could do this.
On that depressing note, I think we have to end it there. Dan, is there anything that you need to plug?
Buy my book.
Yes.
Oh, Dan, how many times has your tweet been viewed now? Is it more than 5 million?
No, so it's been retweeted 37,000 something times.
Not bad.
It's reached 4 million on Twitter.
Wow. And for those of us that don't know what tweet is that?
I don't even want to say because it's wrong.
No more spreading misinformation on Corey's. Hey, Corey, we're going to spread some misinformation. Are you listening?
He's not here. It's all good.
Here's the story. And I wrote a blog post about it just to kind of explain, and then why I haven't even deleted it, because it is one of those like almost embarrassing things that I have to leave up there now.
Mm-hmm.
But I was reading a Nation article, and I felt guilty of reading their blurb on Facebook more than I pay attention to the details in the article, and angrily tweeted. So it wasn't even like a tweet where I crafted like I'm going to put this information out there. I was
Trump tweeted.
I Trump tweeted.
Oh, no. At 2 a.m.
that Trump lost that Trump won the election in Wisconsin by 27,000 votes. Now, in the state of Wisconsin, it was estimated that about 300,000 people lacked the proper identification to actually cast their ballot. Now, the little blurb on Facebook from the Nation and my tweet both imply, not even imply, said 3,000 people could not vote. They were turned away from voting. When the truth is, we don't know at all. Yeah. It could have been 1. It could have been 600,000. Because there's no way of tracking that, because they don't track it. So when someone shows up and tries to vote and they get told no and they leave, no one writes that down. Number 2, we don't know how many people said, look, I don't have an ID, I'm not going to go vote today.
Fair enough.
But so what happened was I said, 300,000 people turned away. That's your quote unquote rigged election. Because the moral of the story, and what I wrote in my blog post about why I haven't taken it down, is that I'll take the brunt of the, you're wrong. Those numbers are wrong. You didn't fact check this properly. Because that actually makes up the minority of the hate mail and tweets I'm getting over that.
Is that right?
The majority is a discussion about voter ID laws and whether we should have them or not. And that, to me, was the whole reason I even tweeted that.
And I think that's Fox News' entire business model.
When I said rigged, I put it in quotes for a reason. Because I wasn't referring to rigged in the sense that Donald Trump was saying this election is going to be rigged, in Hillary's favor. Mm-hmm. I was using it as, for a long time now, conservatives have used voter ID laws to disenfranchise voters and to really target poor and especially African-American communities that struggle to get the proper identification. because they live hundreds of miles from DMVs. They're unemployed or underemployed, and these people tend to vote Democrat.
Yeah.
And if you put barriers that cost money in their way to vote, then they don't vote. They're doing a poll tax in a sense, which is against the Constitution.
Well, wasn't that like I was just reading about this because that's gone up since the Supreme Court cut down the Civil Rights Voter Act or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Voting Rights Act.
Voting Rights Act. There we go.
Yeah, so basically, they've been working on this for a long time. Decades. This has been a thing. Even when the Voting Rights Act was in place, this was one of their tools to try to get around it. But what they were having trouble with was that courts around the country were knocking out these laws, saying you can't do this. It's a violation. Now that the Voting Rights Act has been, kind of dissected and torn apart and destroyed, they're having an easier time walking around doing this. There are some areas where courts are still standing up and saying no. But because they're not reaching a high enough court level or they're just being thrown out, there's no precedence being set around the country. And so what we have happening is that these are just happening in pockets. So parts of Texas will say, nope, you can't enact this law. But then in Wisconsin, they do. And the court there says, no, it's fine. And then actually the court in Wisconsin said, it's fine, but you have to make the IDs free. And they can get them at the DMV. But, and I'm trying to think of who reported on this real quick here. Oh, Think Progress, and they did an investigative report on voter ID laws, and they found that Wisconsin DMV employees were just handing out misinformation. So people were showing up for their free IDs and being sent away without one.
Oh,
wow.
Which the courts specifically said they could not do. They had to help these people get IDs, and they were turning them away because they brought a bill that they said didn't qualify as proof of residency and so on. They were also, there were news reports in Wisconsin of people showing up to vote and their ID didn't match the address because they had moved within the last couple of months. And it takes forever to get IDs. And so there were cases of people being turned away. And that's the conversation I cared more about starting with that tweet.
Okay.
Was, let's talk about voter ID. I'll take the embarrassment of being wrong about my number if we can have a national conversation about this damn thing. And Snopes posted about it, so now I am ashamed with having a Snopes article about me. I'm Snopes.
You got Snoped.
And
That's
I'm
awesome.
unproven, so I'm not false.
Good for you. Good for you.
False. I'm unproven.
Way to be wrong.
I'm not wrong. It's just we don't
Way
know.
to be incorrect, imprecise. I don't know.
So
Accurate.
I emailed the girl that wrote the article at Snopes, and I thanked her for being thorough. She did the right. Her everything she wrote was right. She didn't make me look bad. She didn't try to shame me. She just stated the facts, and she showed exactly where I got my number from and how I got it wrong. But I told her that the only problem I have with the Snopes article was that it kind of glossed over the importance of the voter ID discussion, and she agreed and actually amended it a bit and said, "You're right. The last thing she wanted to do was throw out my unproven claim, because it wasn't a false claim, and detract from the importance of voter ID."
Okay.
He's Snope.
And
the Snopes.
Yeah. And so that's the whole thing with that tweet. But the tweet got picked up by that a left wing news generating site called Occupy Democrats, and they put it on Facebook, and it just it's huge. It took off, and the hate every time this thing gets more popular, and it still keeps getting popular, the more hate mail I get. Republicans hate me for it. Conservatives can't stand it, so I still really can't use my Twitter mentions that much.
I started reading some of the comments on it, so I immediately regretted it. Yeah. Stop crying, you baby. You won fair and square.
We're going to have to bring you back and just check in on the progress of that whole thing.
Yeah, please do. I'd love to come back on. But yeah, I guess before I go, The Secular Activist. It's on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. Please go buy it.
Sweet. And yeah, congratulations on your sweet podcast and stuff too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, listen to that too if you like podcasts. But after you listen to this one, don't. Don't replace. Listen to this one first, then go listen to that one later.
That's a very kind of you.
Mine's a side project. It's not like a main focus. It's just me sort of having another outlet to yell.
Perfect. We all need our outlets. We all need that. Well, thanks so much for joining us this evening. It was a pleasure for sure.
Thank you for having me on. I had a great time.
Okay.
Bye, Dan.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Now we're going to take a break and play some ads and stuff. So for yeah.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/Brainstorm Podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/Brainstorm Podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/Brainstorm Podcast Gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
We are given one life, full of billions of small and large decisions. To be somebody, to change, to be kind, to give hope, to become a better person, and to leave a lasting impact on this planet. It is a decision to be made every single day while your heart is still beating. We've made our decision. Absence of Clothing, atheist and science-based apparel and merchandise, donating 50% of our profits to charity. Look good and feel good, without God. Check us out at absenceofclothing.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest for discount codes and other sweet swag.
Use the code BRAINSTORM at absenceofclothing.com and get 10% off.
Hi, I'm Trav Mamone.
And I'm Morgan Stringer.
Do you like drunken rants, major shade throwing, and semi-funny skits?
Do you often find yourself reading the news and thinking, are you shitting me?
Then check out the Bi Skeptical podcast.
Every 2 weeks, we discuss politics, religion, and current events from a skeptical point of view.
You can find us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher.
Check us out, because in the end, we're all a little bi-curious.
And we're back. So we have Dan Benish here, and he is the CFI Regina guy. And he wanted to talk about some things pertinent to CFI.
Well, I wouldn't say things. That's kind of, far-reaching. It's
There's
really
some doings that transpiring, aren't there?
It's really just mostly the one. Our third annual Festivus for the Rest of Us event is coming up soon.
It's going to be a good time.
Yeah. So the last, wait a minute. Is this the fourth? 1, 2. I'd have to think about that later. So
Might be the fourth.
The last ones we had were always pretty formal. It was a dress up kind of thing. We did Beer Brothers once. Beer Brothers. This is the 4th annual Festivus.
4th annual.
Look who came prepared.
Yeah. It even says right in my notes here, the 3rd annual. No, it says 3rd annual. Okay, scratch that out. So this is the 4th, and the other ones that we did were all super formal. And when Corey and his team did that little event there where they had some famous speakers in the secular community come to Regina.
Yes.
What was that thing called again?
The Shift to Reason
Conference. When they had that little event there in Regina, it was pretty darn good. Anyways, one of the speakers, Leveda, mentioned that if you're trying to increase your reach in the community, you should try to host different types of events. Don't always go to bars if that's what you guys always do. Mm-hmm. Don't always do the same things. You're going to always get the same crowd. So if you want to diversify and you want to be seen differently and you want to reach more people, try to do different things. So last year, the cost per ticket for Festivus got up to it was like $85 each with the wine pairing, which, I mean, for a fancy meal and 3 glasses of wine that pair with your, I mean, it's not bad, but that puts it out of reach for a lot of people. So this year we thought, you know what? we're going to go the other direction. So we decided to do a breakfast buffet at Cora Breakfast. So they normally close at 3. So we got the whole place to ourselves from 5 to 11 on Friday, December 12th. And we're making some major changes from what we've done in years past. So number one is that it's going to be kid friendly. A lot of our members have children and even like them. So they're going to we're going to make it so that the people can bring their children with them regardless of the age. So we're going to hire a babysitter and have a little kids area in the corner where there's going to be some toys. We're going to set up a TV with a Disney movie on it. Maybe get some mats or something. And just have a little area there where the parents can leave their children in a very safe space and have them entertained. And then, of course, for the kids' food and stuff, we're going to have a reduced price on that. They're going to have all you can drink juice all night. Let's make that clear. Juice or water or pop, I guess, if you're a terrible parent. I mean,
they're going to be totally high on sugar.
Yeah, but anyways, and so then, but it allows the parents to then do the gift exchange without having to worry about the kids running around all the time and bugging them, and allow them to play some games afterwards, and so it's going to be really cool. And for all the listeners out there, the next person to text me at 306-596-8502 gets a buy one get one free Festivus ticket.
Text right now.
Yes, and I'm getting. Oh, my phone is lighting up.
Ring those phones.
It's going crazy. I actually did get a text right now. That's really weird. But anyways, after that, everybody who listens to this podcast and lives in Regina, you get $5 off. Just tell me that you listen to this podcast and that's why you bought a ticket, and you get $5 off.
That sounds pretty
the date
awesome.
is Friday, December 12th. We have a total capacity in the building of 100. We've sold 35 tickets so far and barely even started promoting it. So it's coming up fast, and we would love nothing more than to sell it out. And there's a white elephant gift exchange. There's our typical Festivus pole, which is the replacement for the Christmas tree.
Yes.
There's the feats of strength.
Yes.
Airing of grievances, which is going to be very cool this year. And just a good time had by all. So it's an all-you-can-eat breakfast. There's going to be multiple different kinds of meat, pancakes, waffle station, build your own eggs Benedict station, scrambled eggs, hash browns, multiple different toasts and jams. I mean, I could go on. It's going to be amazing.
It's important to have multiple types of toast.
Now I'll check my my wife just texted me to get 50% off a ticket.
Yes.
She's listening. Oh, that's so cute.
Go, Mrs.
I'm just looking at my notes here, and it looks like I touched on everything. So,
okay.
So yeah, Friday, December 12th is the date, and you can get tickets just by emailing cfiregina@gmail.com. If you have children, let me know how many of the tickets are children. Give me the names of the people attending. We're going to have name tags, and we're going to do it proper this year. There will be alcohol there as well, $5 a drink, or I think 5 tickets, 5 drinks for a bottle of wine, and it's going to be great. Please come.
We look forward to seeing you there, folks. That would be awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, if that's all you wanted to plug, let's move on to religious nuttery.
Cornerstone, this might be new to some of you. Scripture says that even our righteous deeds are as filthy rags to God. So even the good things that you do, even things like feeding the hungry and clothing the poor, and taking in widows and orphans, as nice as those things are, if not done from the place of obedience to and a relationship with God, are completely worthless and disgusting to God. If you're not daily walking in a place of relationship to God, then the news that we have to bring you is that you're on your way to hell right now.
So we're going to talk about, I guess it's kind of an old story. It's from 2015. But our favorite fundamentalist weirdo reiterated that
that list is so very, very long.
Be more specific.
Pat Robertson.
I figured.
He's decided that atheists are unfit to raise their own children because he was on TV, and a concerned citizen wrote in and said, Pat, I'm very concerned because this past weekend my 6-year-old grandson and his dad told him that God and Jesus were not real and were just made up to scare people about dying.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. I think
this might come as some news to you.
Dear atheists, don't have children.
Don't. Just don't.
Giggle, giggle, giggle.
Whoops, too late. So yeah, apparently his advice to this person was, if there's any way you can get that child away from that, his father telling him that, I don't know, but if there's any way you can get him enrolled in a Christian school or get him into some, they have daily vacation Bible school and things. That was a direct quote. I didn't add in things. There's all kinds of things you could do to kind of get him into some positive influences. So atheists are bad influences, and they teach their kids bullshit.
Yeah, and Pat Robertson, he's been such a level-headed gentleman up to this point.
Completely.
Sarcasm. Oh, choking on the sarcasm.
That was hard to say with a straight face. So there's that tidbit. Leo, do you want to talk about your story?
Sure. So this one comes to us from The Independent, a UK newspaper. So I'm just going to read like a short excerpt from it. I think that explains everything. A British tourist has been arrested and charged with illegal extramarital sex, air quotes, in Dubai after telling police she had been gang raped. The 25-year-old woman cannot be identified for legal reasons. Was on a holiday in the United Arab Emirates when she was allegedly attacked by 2 British men last month. When she reported the rape at the police station, she was allegedly arrested for breaking Emirati law, I think that's how you pronounce it, against extramarital sex, while her attackers have since flown to the UK. The UK-based Detained in Dubai campaign group said she has been released on bail, but her passport has been confiscated, meaning she cannot leave the country, and could face trial for offenses with punishment, including jail, deportation, flogging, and stoning to death.
What's the takeaway from that?
I actually wrote in my notes that comments ? I felt like there was little I could say about this story.
The only thing that crossed my mind when I read this story is, and I don't know the answer to this at all, is do they make a distinction because they said it was 2 British guys that raped her? Now, the fact that, do they make a distinction because it was non-Muslims raping a non-Muslim, even though they're basing all this on Sharia law? Do they make a distinction, or?
Well, I've heard similar stories from.
I mean, yeah, this I've heard similar stories before. I was just wondering if that.
Well, in the story, they didn't say that they make a distinction, and I've read very similar stories of, like, let's say, people who are citizens in that country who get a similar treatment.
Yeah.
So, I would say sometimes even worse. I was surprised that she got bail. Which
that they might have given her a little leniency because she was a foreigner.
Yeah, I would say there's probably more leniency because she was a foreigner.
Oh.
Probably local women would probably not get off that easy.
Yeah.
I mean she hasn't gotten off,
no.
but like she got bail.
Yeah.
Don't laugh, Dan.
I was gonna say, how far did you get into that story?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is no laughing matter.
Yeah. Phrasing. Improperly phrased.
Several times.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this, I mean, the one thing that why I posted this story on our planning group thing, it still boggles my mind how we can have countries with these kind of laws. Mm-hmm. And while we were speaking with Dan, the one on the screen, about separation of church and state, this really emphasizes the importance of not having the morality, or air quotes morality, of any specific religion dictate the laws of a country, because then you get a highly discriminatory.
I think the
laws.
thing is it's kind of hard for it. Like, it's easy for us to say this, but unfortunately that idea is a very westernized idea, and I would argue that hasn't gotten into the Middle East because
You mean the separation of church and state?
Yeah, the separation of church and state, because they've never had that kind of. It's just not a a type of government they've had. I mean, if you think about it, the Ottoman Empire only fell 100 years ago, or less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, the UAE, I mean, I don't, as far as I know, they claim no such thing, that they even believe in any kind of separation of church and state.
No,
my point was mainly that should be a thing.
Yeah.
It is important for any country to have something along those lines and not have one religious group making the country's penal code. Are you going to laugh, Dan?
Too late.
That made me think that Reince Priebus anagrams to Erie RNC Pubis or something.
Yes. Yes. Where was that?
It was on Samantha Bee. It was on
Full
Colbert,
Frontal.
I
Full
believe.
Frontal.
Oh, that's brilliant.
He
That's
said pubis.
I think, like, when I first heard that story, that I was really disturbed as a woman. And I mean, you're fucked one way without consent, and then you're fucked again because you're being punished because you had nothing to do with, like, that. That's the ultimate. I just was completely horrified.
And because of the way they set it up, you have to have 4 witnesses
And
before they'll believe you in court.
Well,
It's-
and not only that, first of all, the rapist have to confess, and then you have to have 4 witnesses who can attest to his confession. So a confession is not enough. You actually have to have somebody testifying that confession is actually accurate.
It's legit.
Well, so it just exemplifies. I mean, it just shows the degree of injustice that is taking place. Not only is one injustice taking place, there are punishments to the victim of that injustice.
Yeah. And it's fucking horrifying, if you ask me. It's quite disgusting. It makes me grateful to live where I do, and
well, our next segment is coming up, so
there
that might change that.
There's some updated information about this, actually.
Oh, please share.
Yeah, apparently the 2 guys were cleared of the charges.
Oh, they got off, hey?
Well, there's a video, actually, contained on one of their phones that says there was consent of the 3 parties involved. Yeah, this is on, The Sun, but whatever.
Yeah, so instantly it makes you want to take it with a grain of salt.
But yeah, it looks like this is pretty recent. This is like yesterday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, so it looks like things are changing a bit there. But it doesn't say here what's happening to her yet, though.
But, I mean, in the article still stated that the Sharia law, even for... Well, she is being charged with extramarital sex, which wouldn't change if
Exactly.
that still happened.
Yeah.
So
it says the Office of Dubai closed the case. So I don't know if that means she still gets charged or what that means.
Probably what it means is they're going, we're getting a lot of bad press. Let's just get her out of the country.
Just fuck it all.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, there's like a podcast in Regina talking about us. We have to.
We have to do something.
Yeah, we're
brainstorm pressure.
Yeah,
we're making some of those Saudi princes just quake in their
togas,
boots.
I was going to say. I was going to make
flip flops.
Shake your booty joke, but but never mind.
Oh, it's yeah. So I guess the pressure over the international outrage may have influenced this, is what they're saying.
That
anyway,
seems
we're part of that outrage.
Keyboard warriors.
I hope so.
Yeah.
God damn it! All right. Well, Lisa's not here anymore, so
Let's just do the WTF.
let's do WTF.
I can do one more religious nuttery if you guys give me a little bit. It's been a topic that's been near and dear to me. Is that okay?
Do you want to do it off the cuff?
Yeah.
Off script?
And just
Script?
staring at her notes like, I can't allow this to happen.
Go for it. Do it.
So in 2016, there's been a few of my family members that have passed away, and so the funerals have all been in churches, as I grew up in sort of a religious family. And one of the quotes that was at my grandma's funeral just really bothered me. Like, I almost started laughing in the pew because I was just, I didn't know what else to do. I was so bothered by it. But the priest said, he was going on in his sermon, and then he said, where is it here? Do not grieve like those that have no faith. And so, I was like, okay, well, that's, I can understand. He's making appeal to the faithful.
Yeah.
But then he added on. So he said, do not grieve in the same way as those who have no faith and no hope. And I was like, what? What are you talking? Like, I was just started laughing. I was like, you're just, the people in the secular community that I know are some of the happiest, outgoing, friendly, personable people that are living fulfilling lives themselves and their families. And I was just like, and dealing very well with death as well, and understanding it's a natural part of life, and moving on, remembering, respecting that person's life and legacy, celebrating them, but understanding that death is part of the natural consequence of that. And just, it just bothered me so much.
So we're faithless and hopeless.
Yeah. And the other strange thing is that I don't know what I seem to have this effect in a church, but the last 2 funerals I've been at, my entire row did not go for communion. Everybody else did. And I'm standing there, just like the entire row around me would dare not go get a communion wafer with me.
I guess you've been in good company.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like to think so.
That's interesting.
You're an atheist plague.
Yeah.
The atheist virus
I infected them.
Help me, Doc. I've got the atheist.
Am I gonna live?
We can't inoculate you for that.
Is there a shot for that?
I could make a Catholic priest joke, but I am just gonna let that alone. Just gonna let that alone. Just gonna let that live. Stay right there.
That's a good one. I get so frustrated by funerals, and that's, I think, where religious nuttery can have a heyday, because I was at a funeral of a friend of mine many years ago. Well, the last 2 were for friends' dads who passed away, one of which took his own life. And it was excruciating. It was excruciating to be there, and it's like they're capitalizing on the grief of those people. To be like, all right, guys, well, you have no choice. You have to come to church and stuff, and it's just it's excruciating.
Here's what's weird to me, and like a lot of the times people say that they're of a certain faith, and when you really press them on it, they're like, well, it's for my grandma, she's really religious. I just don't want to, it'd break her heart if she knew that I felt this way.
Yeah.
And then that even extends to funerals sometimes. If somebody passes away, but they weren't super religious, they'll still be like, well, let's have it in a church because that's where grandma would want it. That's, it'll just, it'll make her happy.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward, I don't know, 50 or 100 years or whatever, and let's say an extremely non-religious person had a family member die that was let's say even mildly to even super religious. Are they going to say, "Oh no, we're not going to have it in a church though because because dad grandpa wouldn't want that, grandpa's uncomfortable, the vice versa." Are they going to be as considerate to non-believers?
I don't know. I had a great uncle that his joke, and I can't remember when he passed away how they dealt with his funeral, but his comment was always, "When I die, just sharpen my head and pound me into the ground like a spike."
Well, that's all well and good, but are they going to respect the beliefs of the non-believer?
Yeah, probably not.
No, probably
not.
I know, and that's frustrating. Like, you'd think that. Could you imagine that scenario? Like, oh well, her dad was a big atheist, so we'll just have it in a park.
Yeah.
Regardless, just throwing out.
It
the
might
beliefs of the
happen.
person.
I mean, there's more and more people are doing the cremation thing and stuff
It's
like
like
that.
they're doing it just in case.
But I'm pretty sure there would already be people who would be willing to do that. Like, if you, depending on the relationship between, like, let's say if you have kids who turn out to be religious and you're the parent and you've always told them, look, you go ahead and do what you want to do, like go to church, that's fine, but I am not religious. I feel like there must be people already who do that. Like, well, I respect that my father was not of this faith, and we'll just have a different ceremony. I'm guessing it must happen. I have no evidence for it.
Mind you, there's other stories. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the Mormons have been known to posthumously baptize their ancestors into Mormonism.
Yes, that's right.
So
Yes.
it kind of, I think it probably depends.
Yeah.
It'll probably be an individual kind of thing. So depends on how many gallons of the Kool-Aid you drink.
Just a footnote: the Mormons have had their share of Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Oh. They drink it by the swimming pool full.
It's fantastic.
Well, speaking of Mormons,
Should we move on to the what the fuck?
that was my segue. Speaking of Mormons,
Yeah, let's.
speaking of batshit crazy,
Yeah.
Fucking what the fucking fuck? Who the fuck? Fuck this fucking. How did you do fucking fucks? Fuck!
Well, it certainly illustrates the diversity of the word.
And now we have. I don't want to say anything until we kind of play this clip.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
I just want to throw up, I think, instead of actually talk about this story. I just want to.
I feel like that'd be a legitimate response.
Would that be an appropriate response? So that is how, according to the article that we're reading from The Atlantic, how Richard B. Spencer saluted more than 200 attendees on Saturday gathered at the Ronald Reagan Building in Washington, D.C. for the annual conference of the National Policy Institute, which describes itself as an independent organization dedicated to the heritage, identity, and future of people of European descent in the United States and around the world. He's popularized the term alt-right to describe the movement he leads. Spencer has said his dream is a new society, an ethno-state that would be a gathering point for all Europeans, and has called for peaceful ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, because those are always peaceful.
Right?
I would like a follow-up question on that one.
Please, yes.
No, I mean to him. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, peaceful.
Well, we want you to leave. Can you please just line up on the buses this way? Yeah, like that'll fucking happen.
Here's an armband for you to wear.
The thing is, when he spoke, so he does not know his history, and I don't mean this to like in an insulting way, but I kind of do. But no, he just was incorrect in his description of history. He said that white people were the original founders of the Americas.
Yes.
Which was America belongs to white people.
That's right.
Well, no. I mean, that's a historical fact that can be proven. But then his sentiment, he was very blunt about people with dark tone skin don't belong in this country.
Yeah.
And
he said they should go back to Mexico. Even if you were born in this country and you may have served in the military, you should go back to Mexico and spend time and learn about your family's experience and spend time with your family. And yes, but don't stay in America where you were fucking born. And the fact that he referred to the mainstream media as Lügenpresse, which is a term that he was borrowing from the original German, which the Nazis used to attack their critics.
Yeah, they called it the lying press.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah.
Did you see how he said it? He had it with like a little smirk on his face.
Yeah,
Maybe we should do this in the original German. And then he smiled like with that fucking nutbag grin.
Yeah. Crazy.
There's
eyes.
like I said when we were at supper that I had an article on Vice and I should have shared it, but they did one where they were talking about like this rising alt-right movement, and there's like these top 5 or 6 people. Like it's a fairly large group that's starting to come to the fore, especially with Trump and all his bullshit rhetoric. Like
yeah.
I mean, and like we were making fun of Tila Tequila. She was one of the ones mentioned in it, and she's recently got her Twitter account suspended because she was, doing the Nazi salute, and it's like, pick up a fucking history book, like. Yeah. Tila Tequila, I'm not sure of her ethnic origin, but she's Asian.
Yeah.
You weren't part of the Nazis' view of the perfect race.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Asians were somewhere down the ladder,
Yeah.
And this kind of cult-like behavior was already worrying when it was just the kind of neo-Nazi KKK crowd.
Yeah.
But it seems like it has kind of broken out of that a little bit, where it's still not a huge thing, but it's definitely becoming more worrying because this kind of cult-like movement should decrease as enlightenment happens.
Yeah.
And that is not it. Well, it has sharply decreased over the past year and a half. Well, at least people being vocal about it has.
Well, because Trump stoked the fires.
Yeah.
And this is why they're like this. This comparing to Hitler is always. It's hyperbolic. Everyone gets compared to Hitler. Obama was fucking Hitler.
Yeah.
But in this case, there are some parallels. I don't think Trump's Hitler. I don't think the man's. He's smart, but he's not that smart. Mm-hmm. But it stoked those fires, and a lot of the same causes of the rise of Nazism is there.
Yeah.
What you had 2008, you had the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And where there's been recovery, the vast majority hasn't felt that.
That's right.
You have the hangover from 9/11, right? You have the outside other to blame.
Mm-hmm.
So all this stuff, and then hearkening back to, some glorious heyday, you get these three things, you're stoking those fires, and that's where you get this swing. That's the only way I can think of it.
Yeah.
And I refuse to really draw that parallel between Trump and Hitler until very recently, where some of this stuff was starting to come together, where the propaganda was really infiltrating the rhetoric.
Yeah.
And this was just another component in that, where so Obama never had groups of people just outright praising him the way Hitler's followers praised him. Yeah. So you can call anybody Hitler.
Well, I think Obama got it just because Hitler was bad.
Yeah.
We want him to be seen as a bad man.
So this is already a step beyond that. You could have said Bush is Hitler. That would have been an invalid comparison. You just hate Bush. That's not. But it starts becoming somewhat valid when the 3 points that you mentioned, and then when you actually start getting some followers who openly proclaim that they actually want somebody like this to be the next Hitler type rhetoric. That's when you can start actually drawing some of these parallels to it.
Yeah, it's I think the rhetoric is really thick, and honestly, just because I'm kind of a pop culture guy, I've kind of known about Trump for a while, and the guy's been a joke for 30 fucking years. I don't think he's not the same kind of guy as Hitler was, but there seems to be Trump's become like a Rorschach test, and he seems to be a lightning rod for those kind of people, where his rants about building the wall and the Muslim registry, and we did it during World War II with the Japanese, and they seem to be thinking that these things are okay, and it's it's all very scary rhetoric.
It's absolutely scary. I don't like it. It's not. It doesn't make you feel good. It seems like there's a lot of people that aren't thinking. They're letting other people do the thinking for themselves, and they're just outsourcing their thinking. It's bullshit.
I think it's a something I've noticed. There's with the fallout of the election, and there's the talk about the mainstream press not doing the right things. and and whatever else. And I think what it is there's a lot of alternative press that seems to be feeding all this bullshit, and that's part of the problem, i.e. Alex Jones and that kind of stuff. So it's just scary shit that because Trump is elected, these people feel like they can be this vocal.
Yeah.
Like, I was at work and I was being told that one of the servers that used to work there is now in LA, and she was Snapchatting and she's saying that there's actually neo-Nazis in LA are much more vocal than they were, say, a year ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary shit.
Well, I guess we can all say, what the fuck?
Yes.
I think that's a common theme right now. It's just, what the fuck, America? Really? What the fuck?
Well, I think we're gonna break now. We're gonna split the episode. For those of you listening live, stay tuned. We're gonna play some tunes, and we'll end it there, and we'll play some music by the Flight of the Conchords, and we're gonna do a Foo Fighters cover, and we're gonna do Queens of the Stone Age. So enjoy yourselves. All right, I think we gotta wrap it up. So I don't have any more words to say.
Well, you know what? With Spermamax, you can't wrap it up.
No house can hold me.
You will actually explode the condom.
And on that note, I'd like to thank our listeners for being awesome. And yeah.
And our sponsors, Spermamax, Audible.com, and
Reasonist Inc.
Reasonist Inc.
Definitely.
Reasonist Inc. I'm sorry. This is bad.
So blah blah blah. SoCam license. Thanks to everybody, or thanks to our patrons and stuff.
For letting us play music and
be ridiculous. We'll catch you on the flip side.
And we're sorry, Corey.
I apologize.
I'm so sorry.
Corey, I'm so sorry. I will never come back.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just devastated that your followers have to hear this.
Fuck this right now, man.
Is it too late to say sorry?
Anybody have to plug anything?
Okay, this
Anybody wanna
is
plug anything?
Corey. We're signing off tonight. I want to thank Gold's Gym for giving me a shirt for trying out their gym.
Babies. Eat babies.
Performance-enhancing proteins.
And we'll let Gumby out of the closet as soon as the show's over.
Yeah.
We promise.
I don't think I have a big enough closet.
Well, I meant
plug.
the
Festivus,
the other
Friday,
office.
December 12th. Be there.
Will Gumby fit in the tub?
Maybe. Yeah.
Might fit.
I fit in there, so.
Yeah. Have you tried it out?
He's a little bigger than me,
Yeah,
but not much.
Have you had a bath in the bathroom?
I have.
Nice.
I have. It's my bathtub.
Perfect. You might as well.
Anyway,
I'm just going to keep talking until you cut me off.
I'm just playing this outro music.
It's really good.
Yeah, oh yeah, who we have to thank the person who made the outro.
I don't
music.
have that script. I don't know
Corey,
where it is.
you failed us. You didn't give us all the information.
I don't have that.
It's a Capper Murdoch something. Is that
No, that's the person.
Oh,
who
that's
does
to do the
intro.
voiceovers.
That's
So
okay.
we're gonna thank
Thank you to the people who did this stuff.
and
You
the other
guys are
stuff.
awesome.
You guys are great.
You know exactly who you are.
Do you guys have something to plug? Anybody
No.
have something
No.
to plug?
Not
No?
today.
No plugs?
I can't plug.
I'd like to plug my not being here anymore because I'm totally ashamed at the shitty hosting
I think
job.
We're leaving now.
Actually, I think you did a good job.
Yeah, excellent job, Angela. Let's say that.
It kind of
honestly.
it kind of went downhill, but it wasn't your fault at the end. Like we just kind of fucked it up with
Spermamax's
like
fault.
Spermamax.
No,
and-
but that was good.
Yeah,
it was a good show. You guys did great.
Yeah.
Considering people kept leaving too, so you kept it going.
Thanks, Dave. You're good for my ego.
Everybody have a great night.
Yes.
See you in 2 weeks when some person is on the show that we don't know.
Who knows?
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interaction sometimes with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Corey, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.